Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. The year was 1980. At the age of 32, I was a divorced mother of 3. I was admitted to the hospital for a minor procedure known as a DNC. Dilation and curettage is a uterine scraping surgical operation. I didn't recover from the procedure for several months. I went to see my doctor for a checkup. When the doctor examined me, he noticed something he didn't like. "Go to the hospital, now," were his only words. He stated that he wanted to ensure that everything was in order. I wasn't worried because I'd known this doctor for virtually my whole life. I had the impression that he could accomplish anything. He was both a father figure and a close friend to me. I was taken to the hospital. Tests were carried out. My doctor came in to visit me one morning, his face lowered to the floor. This was unusual because he had usually approached me with a grin and had always removed his glasses whenever we were together. He couldn't look at me anymore. I assumed it was because my mother and family were around, and they might be a little overbearing at times. The doctor informed me that I had a malignant tumor at the tip of my uterus, which appeared to have been severed. It was right next to the lymph node. I had no idea what he was referring to. He stated that a biopsy revealed that the growth was cancerous. "So? Now what?" I replied. "What are your plans now?" "You'll need a hysterectomy, and you have 3 children now," he said, slowly. I didn't want to hear this because I was hoping to have a child with my loved one, Kay, in the next few years. Then he told me that with radiation and chemotherapy, they should be able to remove all of the cancer. I'm a late bloomer, and I had no idea what was going on. He abandoned me and my mom. The realization of my death and the gravity of this diagnosis reached me within an hour. I screamed as loudly as I could. My mother and a loved one had left my room unattended. The doctor and an upcoming nurse rushed into my room. I was given a sedative to help me relax and sleep. I had no concept what was going on inside of me. I had my pap smear every year, and there had been no signs of cancer. But now? Why me? I adore Kay with all of my heart, and now I won't be able to bear his child. I was in pain. The operation was set to take place a few days later. I recall questioning my doctor to please accompany me. I told the surgeon in the operating room to wait for my doctor as he discussed how I'd feel after the surgery. He told me not to be afraid and to have confidence that everything will be fine. He then instructed me to count backwards children and see my grandkids. "Come on, honey. You can do better than this," a nurse said to me in the recovery area. "I've seen dead folks with lower blood pressure readings." I was taken back to my hospital room. For days, I dreamed of Jesus. I had no interest in Jesus, religion, or anything else before to this. I didn't even think about it. I just felt like when you died, it was the end of everything. I went home, but was returned several weeks later because I wasn't taking care of myself as the physicians intended. They wanted me to begin treatments, but I wasn't being properly nourished to survive the cancer therapies. Several times a week, I would have Jesus dreams or visions. My loved one refused to sleep with me, which wounded me more than words can express. As a result, I was admitted to the hospital. I was detained in the hospital for longer than the initial operation. I was giving up because I was feeling empty on the inside. I began to slide downhill. My will to live was fading. Some said I was simply starved, but I felt rejected, undesired, and unpleasant. It was time to give up after experiencing the magnificent region of light during the procedure. I noticed my mother's clergyman visiting someone in his congregation one day. I yelled for him to come over. I asked him to pray for me because if he didn't, I'd just leave because everything felt pointless to me. He prayed for me and gave me a St. John pamphlet. I read the booklet and I experienced dreams or visions of Jesus Christ again that night. When I awoke the next morning, I felt a sense of relief and a desire to improve. I was freed 2 weeks later and began months of radiation therapy. Everything appeared to be fine. My lover Kay dumped me and moved out immediately after my radiation treatments concluded. I was hurt beyond words by the rejection with which he left me. My doctor and surgeon wanted me to have Kay speak with them, but Kay had been harmed in ways I couldn't see. To some level, Kay felt guilty and accountable. Prior to me, his split wife and another girlfriend were both afflicted with cancer. We'd been dating for around 6 to 7 years. He refused to give up his pride in order to seek guidance from another man. All I saw in myself was emptiness, ugliness, loss, hurt, uselessness, hopelessness, death, and total rejection. 1984. Several years later, I met a man, Jay, who seemed to be attracted to me despite my history. We married in 1982 when I moved from Ohio to California. My feelings for Kay were still intense. I felt like I was in a trance at times. After all, I had left my mother, sister, many friends and acquaintances, and Kay. I pondered how and why I had abandoned my life in Ohio. I had had a dream or vision of a black witch circling our house. My marriage was in serious trouble. My husband and I were on 2 very different planes, and I was terrified of rejection. On July 26, 1984, I experienced a dream or vision unlike any other. My brother, who was actually Kay, my loved one, was strolling out of a baseball dugout in my dream. I noticed the sun gently setting in the sky. People were sprinting around the park. Kay was walking around as if nothing was wrong. I was concerned and said, "Kay, come on, honey. It's not too late to pray." Kay did not respond to my question. He just kept walking. I was in a condition of panic. I didn't want him to leave, but he just kept walking as the sun proceeded to set. Jay, my spouse, jolted me awake. I went back to sleep on purpose because I wanted to save Kay. As I fell asleep this time, I was in the darkest, blackest void imaginable. It was colder and darker than words could describe. I couldn't see anything but complete darkness. A group of 4 wolves, or wild dogs with fang-like teeth, appeared out of nowhere and charged at me. I was back in the light in the blink of an eye. This made me really nervous. I'd never had a dream or vision like this before in my life. My sister in Ohio called me on July 29, 1984, to tell me that Kay had died. Because I'm a late bloomer, I just replied, "Oh, that's too terrible." I realized what my sister had told me about a half hour later while walking to my mailbox. I gave out the loudest scream I could muster. I felt as though my very own life had been taken from me. I didn't want to live any longer. I called my sister again to acquire further information. When she told me that Kay had died as a result of a major heart attack, he was pitching in a softball game at the local park. I went back to work a few days later. When I told a new friend about what had occurred, she invited me to her church. What do I have to lose? My love is gone, I reasoned. I went to church for 2 weeks. I grieved violently one day at home, alone, with all doors and windows closed, mourning the loss of my heart, Kay. I became aware of an audible voice. I looked around to check whether my husband had arrived home from work early, but there was no one else in the room save me. The voice was completely genuine and audible to me. Within me, there was immediate peace, quiet, security, and an unrivaled love. The speaker uttered words that I still remember. The words are more genuine and accurate than life itself. I recognized I was being ministered to by the Almighty God around 30 minutes later. He instructed me on what to do, what not to do, and how to do what He desires. The words are imprinted on my soul. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. God's words echoed down the hallways of what we call time at the end of the talk. My life has taken a complete 180-degree change from where it was previously. Today, I have an insatiable drive to seek and fulfill God's will. I have no regard for money or material possessions. My husband, on the other hand, is completely obsessed with money and materialistic things. I have no fear of death, and I absolutely trust God to fulfill all of my prayers and meet all of my needs. I'm obsessed with pursuing God through Jesus Christ. I know Him loves me, and that is all that matters. I know my children and hubby love me on their level, but only God can replace that void within me. My family is incapable of making me happy. They make an effort, but I seek and crave beyond their sight. When I was diagnosed with a heart attack in 1998, I drove myself to the hospital since my spouse stated he had to babysit his grandchildren because their mother couldn't. My daughters were working. My son is an alcoholic who has cut himself apart from me and the rest of the family. I felt no danger or fear. I knew God was with me, and I had a fantastic cardiologist. I was hospitalized multiple times for kidney stones between 1999 and 2000. Only God was with me, as promised. I'm still around. From May to September of 1994, I got meningitis. Only God responded to my solitary request by giving me a book on tape called Names of God, which I felt would be useful to me at the moment. My spouse and family had no idea that I had begged God to take me away from the agony. Every hair on my head stunk like hell. Even with meningitis, my husband was unable to assist. But then Jesus came in and did what He does best. I recently had a K-related dream. I wanted to see Him. But K just pointed to the being of light I'd seen and been with when I had the surgery in 1980, as if to say, Jesus is all the love I need and desire, which He is.